Run, river, run, run through the hills. Run, river, run to the sea. Run, river, run to your place beneath the sun. Run, river, run over me. Run.
Hi, this is Jan Lewis. Welcome to be my guest. Today we have from Natick, Debra Sayre. And Debra is the founder and director of Kids Connect, creative and individualized tutoring. When I read about this, I thought this was great. Welcome, Debra.
Thank you for having me.
You are going to, first of all, tell us how you got into this. Did you major in elementary ed in school?
No. I happen to have a master's in education, but I studied rehab administration. In those days, rehabilitation was all physical. And I said, no, I'm interested in the emotional.
Yeah.
So I was able to design my own internship at Concord Prison.
The prison?
The prison. And when I graduated, I took my love of adolescent issues. Mm-hmm. I graduated Northeastern and went to New York, where I was a probation officer, where I was a child welfare worker. Then I came back, went to graduate school, went to work for a 766 school that the state had closed, and I was hired to reopen it.
What is that?
766 is the pre-delinquent. It's a residential program.
Okay,
and
for
it's
behavior issues. We've got those around here too.
Right.
Oh yeah.
Adolescent issues have always been my love because I really hated being an adolescent and tried to understand it. Mm-hmm. And what I've realized is that adolescent issues, which are identity and power, can get resolved at any age. You can deal with it as you grow up, or you can not deal with it and then deal with the consequences. And I think for many youth, people who get involved with crimes and abuse,
drugs and booze, yep.
It's about knowing who they are and what personal power they have to affect their lives. So that's always been my interest and most of my jobs. I was a social worker for many years. Then I became a life coach. Mm-hmm. And I've been a Jewish mother from day one as the oldest of four.
You were the oldest of four children?
Yeah.
You were?
I am, yeah.
How many? Do you have children?
I have one perfect son and two becoming perfect grandchildren.
Okay, I have one son, not perfect. He's a millennial.
No, I could never get those time frames.
Oh, okay. Well, let's see. I don't know. My parents, who would be in their 90s now, were the greatest generation. Then we have, they called it the silent generation. I call it the doo-wop generation. The guys who were born in the late 30s, up to 1945.
Okay.
Then you got the
That's
boomers.
me.
Okay. Then you got the boomers.
Okay.
It was at 1946 to 1964. And then from there you've got the Gen Xers. And I don't know if there's anything in between. And then you got my kid. He's a millennial.
Okay, so mine was born in 1977, so he's a millennial.
No, 77? No, he would be a Gen Xer, I think. Oh. Yeah. That's okay. That's really cool. So you are in the greatest generation.
No, I think I'm in the silent. I was
That's
born
what I'm sorry. That's what I meant, the
42.
silent generation.
I have always felt in between generations.
Yeah.
I was aware of all the shoulds.
With the parents, and then the boomers.
Then the freedoms that were starting. So you get caught with the, can I get away with this? Can I, kind of tension all the time.
My husband says that we baby boomers ruined the world. I say we rocked the world. We're still rocking it. So are you guys.
Actually, that's interesting because I'm seeing so many mature women that are doing such phenomenal things. It's very much like, I've reached the age where I can do what I see needs to be done or I want to do, and a lot of turning to art, a lot of getting involved in volunteers. I have to tell you, during the Vietnam War, and I was a kid, I remember laying there in bed at night saying, why aren't all the mothers getting together and saying, no, you cannot have my son?
I know.
I was waiting for women to get their act together
So yours
at that point.
So you had a son by that point?
No, I didn't,
No.
but I had brothers.
Okay. Yeah.
And just knowing what was going on and the absolute foolishness
I know.
that has gone on. So my mantra now is human evolution is slow.
What human evolution?
Is slow. I have to be patient because there's too much stupidity out there. I'm sorry.
I know it. It's a madhouse. Tell us about Kids Connect.
Okay. So I came back to Natick about 35 years ago.
Yeah. From where now? New York?
I had gone to New York, then I had bought a home in Rhode Island.
Oh, I lived in Rhode Island for a while. Where were you?
Pawtucket. Just
Providence.
over the bridge.
Okay. Yeah.
So I came back to Natick. My father had a business there, which one of my brothers now runs.
Mm-hmm.
My sister lived there. She's now at the half Florida, half
Oh yeah.
Natick. And I was old enough to appreciate being part of a family unit as opposed to the days when I graduated college and couldn't wait to get out of town where no one knew me. So I came back to Natick. I knew enough people that it was easy for me to get involved in committees, to scout out what was going around that the part of me that never grew up still wanted to affect change in. And it's a nice little town with some wonderful, wonderful people. I ran the 4th of July committee for 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
Then I had noticed that there were kids hanging around at night, the lost kids.
Yeah.
And as much as I love my town, it was very much, we only have kids if they're athletes, and maybe if they're scholars. The image, the self-image of the town, like many, didn't include the kids that were in pain or marginal.
Yeah.
It didn't fit with their identity. And I watched those kids, and those are my kids. And so eventually I said, there needs to be a safe place, a drop-in or something. So I believe in the Johnny Appleseed approach, which is you talk to a lot of people and you kind of see who responds, you see the energy, you see the ideas getting shared so that at some point you can have a meeting to talk about something.
Yeah. Sure.
And so I did that. The group that came then split, those that wanted a skate park and those that wanted a drop-in. And I had a friend of my father's in town who was a lawyer, and I asked him to incorporate for us, because you can't get money without being a nonprofit. And so I was working on that, working on involving some people as volunteers, and I get a call one day from the police chief, and he says, I got a grant for you.
I bet you fell out of your chair.
It was awesome. I wanted the drop-in. The grant was for after-school programming, but no sports, no recreation, no arts. It was like, okay, I can live with that.
Yeah.
So that's why we started the tutoring component first.
Right.
And then once I got my kids, I did the drop-in in another space
How'd that
in
work
our
out?
area.
Did that work out well? Drop-in?
Give me 18 kids and they're mine, and I feed them, and I do what they call Debbie Talks.
Yeah.
Because these kids, many of them were very bright, but they were dealing with things they didn't have the skills for. Most were involved with the police.
Then you got the ADHD, the bipolar, all these things coming in now.
Well, in those days, it wasn't so much. Some of my kids had some issues, but it was more the social. Yeah. And they had many of them, emotional literacy. So when they acted out, and I said, tell me what you're feeling, sure, I'd get a blank look, and I'd have to say, okay, mad or sad, and start basically, because when people can't articulate, the energy is just chaotic and impulsive, because you have nothing to channel or divert or understand. And so the chaos of not understanding on top of the chaos of the emotion So,
Are these kids that are tutoring other kids, or
no, these were just kids that needed a safe place. Kids who on the street hated each other. In my space, and I have no idea how the universe did this, but when they were at Kids Connect at the drop-in, everything was neutral.
Yeah.
Everybody was a buddy. It was safe. They didn't have to act as if they were tough. They didn't have to act as if they knew where their next meal was. We had couches and TV and games and a foosball table, and me, who said, I see things in you you don't, so I'll believe in you until you can believe in yourself.
Right.
And for many of them, that was a unique experience.
Yeah.
And my expecting them to be better than they saw themselves. You know, when you write a kid off, he'll live up to that expectation.
Yeah.
And sometimes parents try so hard to help and excuse that it has a negative effect. The child assumes they're incapable or assumes they're not good enough. And that's a whole other ballgame. So I hired some tutors.
Were they adults or teen?
Adults.
Okay.
No, I did not want to get into dealing with volunteers and training them.
Okay.
So I was very lucky. I had some highly qualified teachers. And I basically said, you're qualified. The criteria was you had to care.
Yeah.
I don't care how skillful you are. If you don't care,
Yeah.
if you don't have a sense of humor, if you're not, there's not a certain warmth.
Yep. And empathy, big, right? Empathy for these kids. You gotta have it.
Yes, an awareness that when a child is struggling in school, it hurts. It affects their self-image, and they carry that forward if it doesn't get addressed. So what we do is half emotional and half education skill, because you're dealing with the whole child. So we started in the training room of the police station because we didn't have space.
Wow.
And
That's gotta hit home to some of them.
and
Yeah.
they were fine. And then we moved over to our current location, which is on the second floor of a building downtown
In Natick, okay.
in Natick. So I started with one big room, and then an office became available. And it basically was artists, so it was low rent, but not run down.
Kind of like a loft type of thing?
No, just the second floor of a two-story.
Yeah.
And there were artists in there, and I literally went and said, you know, I heard you're not here very often. Do you really need to be here? And
Oh, yeah.
and she said, no, I was waiting till my kids grew up and went to school so I could be here.
Oh.
I said, well, I need the space for... She said, okay, I'll leave the couches. And that's how we started.
Wow.
And then I took another room on the floor, and then another big room became available. So I gave up the little room. I now had two big rooms, one for drop-in, one for tutoring.
Yeah.
And my drop-in kids did not go into the tutoring program.
Why?
The expectation was you can do it yourself or I put you in. So they worked, because many of them were bright, and almost one of the disadvantages for some children who are bright and aware is they are aware of too many dynamics they can't handle. You know the expression, ignorance is bliss?
Mm-hmm.
Well, for kids in a tough situation, if they're, I don't want to misrepresent this, but sometimes they're overloaded with awareness that they don't know how to process.
Yeah.
You know, they're aware of family dysfunction or lacks or things like
They
that.
feel different from the other kids in that classroom.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we now have, I had the wall taken out when the drop-in lasted for about 5 years.
Okay.
The program was started as a middle school program.
When did it start now? 99, right?
Incorporated in 99.
Okay.
Did some fundraising. So we basically opened the doors late 2000. We had the tutoring, we had the drop-in. It was a middle school program, and what I noticed over time, for whatever reason, my kids that came to the drop-in were less at risk and more just teenage angst and lost, which is not where my heart is, because they didn't need
Yeah.
the nurturing as much. They didn't need the teaching as much. And we were getting a lot of calls for tutoring services for siblings that were not in middle school yet or were in high school.
Could you do it?
So what we did is we made the executive decision after 5 years to only do tutoring.
Okay.
And opened it up. We now tutor grades 1 through 12. I have 14 tutors. The Spanish tutor may only come in for 1 hour a week.
How about math? That was not my.
That's the bulk. Middle school math,
Yeah.
because you have...
The college prep math was horrendous. That's why I had to have a tutor in my sophomore year.
We have a lot of algebra.
Trig, that got me. That was it.
I haven't had...
Terrible.
Do I have a
Trig and I had to. College prep, I had to. I'm like, had I known I didn't, if I didn't want to have college prep. Oh no, you're going to go college prep.
Yeah. Yeah, math, and I listened to the math programs today.
It's crazy.
2 and 2 is 4.
Yeah.
I don't care how many pages you take to explain.
I was taking care of a little boy one time, and I said, okay, let's sit down. Easy, 2 and 2. What do you think? No, they got to go to New Jersey to New York to get to the answer.
And how do you feel about it?
Wow.
I know. So a lot of the kids don't have the basic skills to address the other. Now that we're dealing with younger grades, we're able to intervene earlier, which means they're not coming in middle school quite so stressed. Because in middle school, nobody's holding their hand anymore.
No.
But at the same time, they don't have the skills. I call them turtles without shells.
Oh.
They aren't in a system that purports to support them, nor are they in high school where they've developed enough of the fake it till you make it.
Mm-hmm.
And so middle school is a very, very difficult segment in the development of a person. And when they struggle in school, and it could be because of the teacher, it could be because of the subject, it could be because of their abilities, they tend to take it personally.
Mm-hmm.
So it's, I can't do this, I'm stupid, as opposed to I can't do this because I haven't learned it yet. That word yet does not get added to enough places.
It does. We're talking with Debra Sayre, and she is the founder and director of Kids Connect. It's over in Natick, creative and individualized tutoring. And how can people reach you if they'd like to start something like this, Debra?
DebraSayre@gmail.com.
Okay, Debra and Sayre is S-A-Y-R-E
Yes, thank you.
at gmail.com. Now, when you went to college, what did you major in? Uh-oh.
Getting through. I needed that piece of paper to go out and do what I did.
Getting through, I love it.
I'm sure I learned a lot in college.
Yeah, that's how I was in high
I
school.
was not impressed
Yeah,
with many
I wasn't either.
of my courses,
I wasn't either.
but I needed that. So when I was a senior trying to figure out what I was going to do, I always knew I was going to work with kids.
Yeah.
That's just where my heart went. I took a civil service exam out of New York.
Yeah. Why did you go to New York to do this?
It was far enough away for independence, close enough to call in a crisis.
You
was
wanted
a
to get
very,
away from your home.
Do you know what it's like being in a town where you can't even get your own ticket because the cop knows your father?
Well, I
I
grew up in a
was-
small town. Yeah.
I was tired of everybody knowing everything I did. Not that I did anything,
yeah.
but I needed to be me,
Yeah.
not just Joe's daughter or Betty's
What
daughter.
college did you select?
I went to UMass
First you went
in
there.
Amherst.
Yeah.
Because of concerns with my father, I spent more time plotting how I could get home in the crisis than studying, so I transferred to Northeastern and lived at home.
So wait up,
What?
Dorothy. Oh, you commuted?
To Northeastern.
Okay, yeah. So
Yes.
you're not New York.
No. But I took this exam because I didn't know what I was going to do. And I got a letter from the probation department in New York saying that I had scored high enough. I only made one choice on that whole civil service thing, And that was to be a probation officer, for which I was not qualified according to what they said, but I didn't care. I checked it anyway.
Yeah. Why not?
And I got a letter saying I had scored high enough to be given that year's credit.
Were you surprised?
I was delighted.
Yeah.
I graduated in the morning, and I was in New York that afternoon. And I was a probation officer, and I just knew that anything I wanted was out there. The fact that I didn't need it or go looking for it was irrelevant, but I knew, should the day ever come, that I wanted to see somebody or some show or shop for something that was there.
Yeah.
It was a whole new experience. It was, and I found a rent-controlled apartment, and I had my little Volkswagen that,
I had a view dub. Was it a Superbug or a Bug?
it was convertible.
I had a Superbug, no convertible. So the big one.
It was a
Semi-auto.
convertible, and if somebody double parked next to me, I could scoot down the sidewalk and get out.
Oh,
and
yeah.
it was,
Oh, I did used to do so. My father said he didn't want to ride with me because he felt like he was going around the corners on two wheels.
yep, that really was a nice little car. And then I came back for graduate school.
Yeah.
I was a probation officer
Yeah.
with only one rearrest in 9 months, and got reprimanded for it.
Yeah. You got
I
reprimanded?
got reprimanded, and the only rearrest was because I had a young man who was psychotic, and my boss was afraid of him, so wouldn't sign the paper to have him picked up for a psychiatric. I had to wait until the boss was out.
Not a good idea.
And then I was told I was making everybody else look bad because I was getting my people into programs out of territory. I was seeing my people too much.
That doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make sense unless you're in a bureaucracy.
Ah, yes. Bureaucracies.
I don't do well in those situations.
No.
So,
Unless I'm the leader.
which is why I am now currently the boss of my own program.
Yes.
Because my theory is if I'm going to work for an idiot, I'll be the idiot.
I loved it. You are an entrepreneur. I mean, to the extreme. You are definitely an entrepreneur. Ever since, and it didn't just happen when you say turn 30 or 35 or 40. It happened.
No.
You knew. You knew.
When I worked for the Department of Mental Health, they had just started creating the position of area drug coordinator.
Yeah.
And I went to work for them in the Medfield Norwood area, which was an 11-town mental health
I've been
region.
to Norwood, yeah.
Medfield, Norwood, Dedham, Westwood.
Canton.
Yes.
Yep.
Because it was the days of hotlines, and
I've
we had a
been up there.
hotline there.
Yep.
And I remember asking my boss, because I was the second one hired in the state. The first one got snatched and put in as staff in a clinic.
Oh.
I remember saying to my boss, what's my job description? And bless Dr. Sayre, not the same, to this day, he said anything you can get away with. You don't say that to me.
Yeah.
So I got a building on the grounds of Medfield State Hospital and started a residential treatment center
My
for
God,
adolescents. We had hotlines. I did groups with kids.
You love it.
Awesome.
You can see how she loved it. You love kids. Oh, boy. I wish my son had known you.
When I came back from New York,
Yeah.
and I went to work for the Department of Mental Health, I also went to apply for a part-time job at the Dedham Family Service. And
You think of all the places you've been.
there's more.
There's more. Okay.
One of the questions that Hilda Gibson, who was head of the Dedham Family Service in those days, she was wonderful. She said to me, you're coming from New York to suburban towns.
Yeah.
Can you make the transition from dealing with the black street kids to the suburban white kids?
Yeah.
And I thought that was one of the most profound questions, and I had to think about it. And I said, in New York, the energy of the kids was right there. You knew where they were at, what they were feeling at any time. And I said, when I come to the suburbs, I'm going to have to dig for that energy before I can rework it or use it.
Sure.
And she made me aware of differences in dynamics that I thought was exceedingly insightful. And literally working with the suburban, and I grew up in the suburbs, but I had not been aware. I was so comfortable in New York with the energy of the city and of the neighborhoods, that I realized that many of the suburban kids almost have
A bubble around them?
a layer of, I don't want to say suppression, but of expected appropriateness. I don't know if you remember when you were young, when people would say, oh, you shouldn't feel that way. There was, you shouldn't be angry, or you shouldn't be upset, or you shouldn't. And feelings just are. There's no judgment or shoulds. The should be in what you do about it, not what you feel. And that's a distinction that many people today are not aware of.
Yeah.
So when a child is acting out, and you're telling them not to act out, it's like trying, in some cases, to put the energy back in the bottle, as opposed to acknowledging and then directing the energy and giving them skills on what to do with the energy
What
of
are
the
you
feeling.
interested in? What's your thing,
What are you feeling, and how else can you tell me about it?
Yeah.
Because many kids act out because they don't know how to express or demonstrate appropriately what's going on, so someone can respond appropriately.
Debra, we need more people like you. Oh my gosh. Debra Sayre, she is the founder and director of Kids Connect. And it's over in Natick. However, we can learn a lot, every single town, every city, from what Debra is doing. Debra, how again can they connect with you?
Debra, Debra, Sayre, S as in Sam, Ayre, @gmail.com.
Now, what are the hours over there?
It's an after-school program,
Okay, so like 3 to 6? Or...
2:30. 2:30 to 7:30.
What about
whenever
dinner?
is needed.
Do they eat dinner over there?
Well, they come for an hour at a time.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah.
It's not an after-school program with activities. They come at a scheduled time to meet with any one of my 14 tutors. They're assigned a tutor, and then they agree on Tuesdays at 3 o'clock.
Do you tutor also, Debra?
I do not tutor.
Okay.
I highly executive responsibilities. Raise the money and make the coffee. My job is to make sure that my staff is comfortable, is cared for, is recognized, so that they can then turn around.
Yeah.
And they can do what they wanted to do when they first went into teaching.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of games. There's a lot of laughing. There's a lot of one tutor going to another tutor because they're both dealing with the same problem and the same age, saying, do you understand what the teacher wants?
Yeah.
So kids come in. We have a little kitchen area.
Yeah.
They come in, they get a snack.
Very important.
Very important.
Yep. First thing when I get out of school in the afternoon, food.
Well,
Definitely.
especially if you're on a 10:30 or 11 o'clock lunch
Oh,
schedule.
it was ridiculous.
So my job is to make it comfortable and nurturing. I have tutors that come and have been with me for 10 years. They love it. They're talking about retiring from the school system,
And coming
they're
to you.
still going to come to me.
Oh, yeah.
Because they get to address the kid in front of them.
Mm-hmm.
And if it means they can only learn math through baseball scores or card games, I don't care. It's about them having the skill, not about how they get the skill.
Oh, I love that.
And
Oh.
so it's, I have to tell you, there are a few students who come at 2:30 if they can get from school.
Yeah.
3:30 is when I might have in the room 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 or 7 tutors in the same room.
They're all in the same room.
It's one big room. We took the wall out between, so the room runs from the front of the building to the back of the building.
How do the kids who have trouble concentrating concentrate?
We schedule them when it's not so busy.
Okay.
My assistant director has a little room
Yeah.
connected to it where she deals with the young ones. We accommodate, we're flexible. Somebody calls and says, I have a dentist appointment, I can't come. they and the tutor work out,
Sure.
can they miss it? Are they okay enough? Or do we reschedule? All my tutors have keys, so they've come in on a Friday to meet with a kid who's having a test. We are as accommodating and flexible as we can be without being taken advantage of.
Anybody out there who's interested, talk to Debra on getting this type of thing started.
I don't like structure.
You're good on your own.
Because
I relate to that.
Structure is only needed
Yep.
for a purpose. It should not be for its own sake.
Yeah. Yep.
So, and I have to tell you, some parents pay by check, some by cash. As I got older, I went, oh, I better get a receipt book.
Yeah.
Because if I get distracted and don't mark it down.
Yeah.
So, 15 years into the program, we got a book of receipts.
What do you do with the family that cannot pay you?
They don't pay. It's a sliding
That's
scale.
okay then.
That the whole purpose, my whole purpose was to provide this service for the kids who otherwise would not have it. So we have a fee, and I say this is the fee, and depending on the pause, the facial expression, I say, but if that's too much, you and I will work out what works. And I don't get into their business
Yep.
because I don't want to. I say, what can you afford?
Right.
And most people
Can handle it.
tell me what is appropriate for them. I don't need to know how many bills they have and who has
Or even if
braces.
they're on assistance, who cares? Right?
Yeah, no.
That's
So,
private.
and I will say that people appreciate that we're there, what we do for their child,
Yeah.
and do the best they can, because we're not the only expense in their life.
Debra, we've
So-
got a guy. I could talk with Debra for hours. Thank you for being with us. I want to have you back because this idea of Kids Connect and the tutoring and everything you started, this is great. And she's in Natick. Again, how can they reach you?
Debra Sayre at gmail.com, or go to the website, which I have not updated in a while, because I do not like to be technical.
Oh, we are so much
I
alike.
do have a phone and I do text, but that's it, folks.
Okay. You email, though. I know.
I do email.
She does email. She does email. Before we close, Debra, if somebody wanted you to come and speak at a school to share, or maybe come and see some of the staff to share your wisdom about this, would you do it?
I would love to.
So you know how now to get in touch with her.
I'm a strong believer that the more conversation we have, the more awareness we have, and the less pain we cause.
We're going to see if we can have her back. Would you like to come back?
I-
We got to talk more. Do we have to talk?
Yeah. Oh, we can
We
talk.
have to talk.
We can talk.
Thank you, Debra.
My pleasure.
And we'll see you next time and be my guest. Excellent.